Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. I am your host, Richard Holdridge. This is presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Don't forget, you can catch a replay of this show Monday through Friday on WQEE from 2 to 3. That is a radio station up in Noonan. I am so happy to be here. I've had such a busy week of calling games for Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I was able to sit back and watch college football in the NFL over the weekend, and I was able to watch the World Series. I mean, this is a great time to be a sports fan, and I am just truly blessed that I'm able to give you not only the local content, but all the content that's outside of the Chattahoochee Valley, the national sports scene, as I would like to call it. Jam-packed show, going the full hour today. We're on Facebook Live. Just subscribe to my Facebook page. It's called The Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. I've got a goal where I'm trying to get 500 subscribers. I mean, that is just a great milestone for me. On my YouTube channel, it's lagging a little bit. I probably need to do a little bit more advertising. I know not everybody's on Facebook, but you can subscribe to the YouTube channel and trying to get this show off the ground. I've been doing this show for 4.5 years. I've had just a blast doing this show. And I have been inspired by great broadcasters that came before me, like Josh Pate, like Colin Cowherd, like Jake Crane. I mean, those are really my three favorite sports talk show hosts that have a show that I really listen to on a regular basis. I mean, we have others like Dan Patrick and Jim Rome, but, you know, when I try to find that personality that really captivates me, those three really captivate the audience. And I really enjoy their shows, and I really appreciate everything they've done for broadcasting, especially Josh Pate, being a local guy from Columbus and being able to do that CBS Sports college football show that he does every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday night at 8 o'clock. It's something I really look forward to, and just hearing the insight and breaking down the college football games. On this show, I'm going to start with the NFL. I'm going to do my NFL reaction show. I'm going to then do my college football reaction show. Going to, like I do every Monday, I'm going to talk about the latest projections for the college football playoff. We're a couple of weeks away from that first college football playoff selection show. I feel they're going to do it exactly like they did the shows before. They're going to list the 12 teams. And you know that 12th team is going to be that group of 5 team. So I'm going to have that like I do every Monday. You know, last week, I shared this with Philip Jordan. He was actually on the show, and he got to do his projections, and I made a graphic for him, and it was so much fun. All right, tomorrow's show, I'm going to BTV Sports Kevin Eckelberry, as LaGrange is buzzing right now. Not just the football season, but the LaGrange Granger softball team is going to be down at the South Commons Softball Complex. We're going to have a lot of teams from the state of Georgia just down at South Commons. It's going to be great for the economy, and Columbus does a great job hosting that event, all classifications in the state championship. Don't forget, I'm going to recap Week 11 in high school football on tomorrow's show, which airs on the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Facebook page and YouTube channel. So let's go ahead and dive right into the NFL reaction show, because we got a lot to get to. especially all the NFL games that happened yesterday. I mean, we did have the Rams and Vikings on Thursday night. I briefly talked about that on Friday's show. We've got a Monday night football game that's tonight between the Giants and the Steelers. Right. So let's go ahead and without further ado, let's get right into it. The Atlanta Falcons, first place in the NFC South. How does that feel? Look, if you're a Buccaneers fan, you're kind of feeling down. I mean, Baker Mayfield did show that he's able to try to come back, and the Atlanta Falcons were up 31-17. And I kind of felt like when they got the ball back, because Baker Mayfield threw some interceptions, Jesse Bates really won the game for the Falcons. The punching out of the football when that first drive and then intercepting Baker Mayfield. I kind of felt like this was a back and forth game, but because the Falcons had the ball in the second half, that they were able to get aggressive. And Kirk Cousins, 4 touchdown passes, including just a huge play to Kyle Pitts on National Tight Ends Day. And the Falcons did what they were supposed to do. And I wasn't a little too nervous, even though the Buccaneers got that safety to go down 31-19, and then Baker Mayfield throws the touchdown pass, and the Falcons able to hold on. And even though Baker Mayfield got the ball back and they were down 31-26 with the ball, not a whole lot of time left on the clock for Baker Mayfield to throw that Hail Mary, which he did. It didn't really work out. It actually worked out in another game. I'll talk about that in just a bit. Such a great win for the Atlanta Falcons. 5-3, that drops Tampa Bay to 4-4. And with the way that the Saints and the Panthers are playing right now, this is a 2-team race between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. And the Falcons sweep the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are undefeated in the division and 3-0 on the road. The Atlanta Falcons, it's not perfect, but they are doing what they are expected to do. And Kirk Cousins looks fantastic with the 4 touchdown passes. They ran the ball for 129 yards. Kind of wish they would run the ball more, but that's okay, because if Kirk Cousins is doing his thing, I mean, you got Kyle Pitts on National Tight Ends Day with 2 touchdown passes, finally getting involved in the offense. 4 receptions, 91 yards. Darnell Mooney, he's been a great pickup for the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, Drake London was targeted 6 times, and he only had 4 grabs. And I do think that it was the Falcons' defense. Even though they did not get a sack, I still thought that they rattled Baker Mayfield. He did throw the 2 interceptions, even though Baker Mayfield did have the 3 touchdowns. And we knew that on National Tight Ends Day that all the tight ends would get involved. Cade Otton, 9 receptions, 81 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It's not a coincidence that the tight ends got involved on National Tight End Day. All right, moving from the Atlanta Falcons, that, by the way, they will take on the Dallas Cowboys next week. And this is a good segue to go to the Sunday night game, which, if you didn't have the names on the helmets and the rivalry between these 2 historic NFL franchises, I seriously thought this game should have been flexed out of that Sunday night matchup, because the Cowboys are struggling. The 49ers are struggling. Look, the 49ers are depleted by injuries. Brandon Ayuk gone for the season. Jawan Jennings didn't play. Christian McCaffrey is still on IR. But the 49ers were able to get the win over the Dallas Cowboys, because the Cowboys are not a very good football team right now. They don't have a running game. You've got an old Ezekiel Elliott and an old Dalvin Cook, and you got Turpin, who's a young running back, but he's not a featured running back. The Cowboys could not run the football against the 49ers. And even when the Dallas Cowboys went up 10-3, I still thought that the 49ers got this, that the 49ers, Brock Purdy, was going to bounce back after that disaster of a game last week against the Kansas City Chiefs when he threw 3 interceptions. You got to remember, it's the Chiefs defense. The 49ers are still a decent enough team. Now they're 4-4. They're tied with the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals actually are leading the division. The Seahawks are 4-4. I mean, this division is up for grabs. This was a must-win game for both teams because now the Cowboys are looking up and they see the Eagles and the Commanders running away with this division. I don't think the Cowboys make the playoffs this year. And they got to play the Falcons next week in Atlanta. It's disaster time for the Dallas Cowboys. And you give Dak Prescott all that money. He had 2 interceptions. The 49ers actually, even though Brock Purdy didn't have a perfect game, he was missing some receivers. Jordan Mason was a non-factor. He went out with the injury. Deebo Samuel went out with an injury later in the game. And then again, I want to emphasize National Tight Ends Day because George Kittle had 6 receptions, 128 yards for a touchdown. That is not a coincidence on National Tight Ends Day. Very impressed with the rookie running back, Isaac Guerendo. Is this another rookie running back like the 49ers have had with Elijah Mitchell that they are able to get involved in the 49ers offense? I do think that after the 49ers made the adjustments at the half because they trailed 10-6, they got the ball back. I was a little disappointed that they did not at least kick the field goal. The Cowboys defense did a good job keeping them off the board toward the end of the half. The Cowboys imploded in that third quarter. 49ers go up 13-10. Dak Prescott throws an interception as Deommodore Lenoir. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl corner this season. He's having a fantastic season. And then the 49ers were able to get the touchdown to go up 20-10. Cowboys had to punt it away. Now the 49ers are up 27-10. And the Cowboys did get that field goal. I thought the 49ers were going to put it away. Once the 49ers kicked that field goal to go up 30-17, and then the Cowboys marched down the field. And this was my worry as a 49ers fan watching this game because I stayed up late last night and I watched this game that the 49ers would play conservative. I wanted them to score another touchdown so they're up by more than 2 scores. You're only up by 2 scores. You kick the field goal, it's 30-17. You're giving Dak Prescott a chance to score a touchdown and have your defense force the 49ers to play conservative, burn their timeouts. The Cowboys did get the ball back after that touchdown. They were down 30-24. My heart was beating fast. I'm thinking, here we go again. Am I going to get on this show today and talk about Kyle Shanahan blowing another double-digit lead like he has done against the Rams and the Cardinals this year? But the 49ers defense was able to get the stops and the turnover on downs, and Dak Prescott could not lead the Cowboys back because the 49ers defense played coverage. They knew that the Cowboys weren't going to run the football. And Dak Prescott is not a mobile quarterback. By the way, Brock Purdy had his most rushing yards this season. He is a mobile quarterback. And I do think that the 49ers are a little bit more comfortable with Brock Purdy. It's ebbs and flows because he had a terrible game against the Chiefs, and then he had a pretty good game against the Cowboys. 49ers are 4-4. Cowboys are in trouble at 3-4. 49ers have the bye, and then they play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2 weeks, which I've already reached out to WDAE's Jay Rescher from Tampa as I'm trying to get him on the show. I would love to preview that 49ers Buccaneers game, and he covers everything Tampa Bay sports down in the Tampa area. All right. I know I went off on, my team, the San Francisco 49ers, which I don't think that they're going to the Super Bowl this year. I'm sorry. You lose Brandon Ayuk for the rest of the season. That is a hard obstacle to overcome. And, also the injuries of Talona Hufanga and Javon Hargrave. It's going to be just a long season for the San Francisco 49ers. But one thing that the 49ers do well is those rookie draft picks are starting to hit. When you pay your quarterback, which they will pay Brock Purdy, I don't think he's going to be the highest paid quarterback in the league. I think he is going to get second-tier quarterback money because that's what he deserves. He is not a top 10 quarterback. He's in the next tier. I would say he's a top 15 quarterback, and I think he gets top 15 money. The 49ers need to hit on all their rookies, and they've had. They really have with Isaac Guerendo, and then you have that other rookie defensive safety that's playing in the place of the injured Talona Hufanga. and I'm trying to get his name because it's Malik Mustafa. There you go. I finally got his name. Is hitting on that draft pick as well. And then plus the 49ers actually have a depth of talent, and great to see Ricky Pearsall getting involved in the offense. This is a rookie that he's going to have to take the place of Brandon Ayuk. He is going to have to be your slot receiver. I hope that Ricky Pearsall ends up becoming just an outstanding rookie wide receiver for the 49ers because they're going to need him because of the injury to Brandon Ayuk. All right, this was the game of the day. You know, it was two rookie quarterbacks. It was Caleb Williams. It was Jaden Daniels. They had this game in prime time. Jim Nantz and Tony Romo were on the broadcast, which was shocking. I couldn't believe they didn't call another Chiefs game. But it was the game of the day. Down 15-12. The Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels, throws a Hail Mary with time expired. He had so much time in the pocket. He was running around, and it was a tip. And then all of a sudden, Noah Brown is behind the defenders, and the Washington Commanders pull off the win. I mean, this was a game that they should have won because, you know, they are better than the Bears, and they're playing at home. But how exciting was it for the Washington Commanders not only to win this game against, two teams that are trying to fight for the playoffs? I mean, the Chicago Bears came into this game 4-2, and I thought that the Bears, if they would have won this game, they could possibly even make the playoffs, even though Caleb Williams didn't have his best game. I mean, he was 10 of 24. He's going to have to figure some things out. The Bears ran the ball very well with DeAndre Swift, but it's the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels who had 326 yards. That wasn't the story. It was the Hail Mary to Noah Brown, and the Commanders are 6-2. I can't wait until that Thursday night game a couple of weeks from now where they take on the Philadelphia Eagles. That is going to be amazing. Another game that was really the shocker of the day was the Cleveland Browns getting the win over the Baltimore Ravens. How about Jameis Winston, which I shared on my social media, that GIF of him asking people who wants to eat a W. It's kind of silly. He did it while he was in Tampa, but he wins. And Jameis Winston, even though he throws a lot of picks, the fact that he won a game for the Cleveland Browns against one of the top teams in the AFC is fascinating. And they were able to win this game because Jameis Winston threw the go-ahead touchdown to go up 29-24 to Cedric Tillman, the former Tennessee Volunteer. And on that drive, Kyle Hamilton, the safety for Baltimore, drops a sure touchdown. Lamar Jackson had a chance. He had a chance to do what Jaden Daniels did for Washington, but it was no dice. That pass that he threw, even though he had plenty of time, there was a Browns defender there. Nobody. Browns had great coverage in that end zone, and Baltimore ends up losing to Cleveland for the second year in a row. We're talking about a Cleveland Browns team that beats a Baltimore Ravens team that the Ravens have better players. They're supposed to beat the Browns, but this is a big win for the Cleveland Browns. I still think the Cleveland Browns season is over. I mean, even though last year we saw Joe Flacco get them into the playoffs, maybe Jameis Winston can save Kevin Stefanski's job, because I do think that Kevin Stefanski, if the Browns don't have a winning season this year, I think that Kevin Stefanski is going to be out of a job. The Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFL. Yes, I did say it. I said it because right now I think they're better than the Kansas City Chiefs. The Detroit Lions have the best offensive line in football. They have the most efficient quarterback in Jared Goff. And I do think that they are better on all phases of the game. This tells you how bad the Titans are with Mason Rudolph or Will Levis. It doesn't really matter who the quarterback is. And even though Calvin Ridley had 10 receptions for 143 yards, they got rid of DeAndre Hopkins. The Titans are a mess. I think that they're not going to fire their coach. This is a first-year coach. Remember, Jimmy Johnson went 1-15 in 1989 for the Cowboys. I think they need to find a quarterback. They need to draft a quarterback in the next NFL draft. They have missed on first-round quarterbacks. Vince Young, Jake Locker. But the Titans need to find somebody. The Lions, Jared Goff with 3 touchdown passes. Jahmyr Gibbs, 127 yards. I mean, it was their special teams that won the game for them. And when you have a Detroit Lions team that's just firing on all cylinders, it's really hard to stop. They had Khalif Raymond with a 90-yard punt return. They had just an incredible run by Jahmyr Gibbs. And this game was over. It was over in that second half. And the Detroit Lions look like the best team in the NFL. I believe the Lions are my representative to go to the Super Bowl. I think that it's the Detroit Lions' time. They learned a lot from that loss to the 49ers in the NFC Championship. What a great win for Detroit. How fun is it going to see the Lions play on Thanksgiving? We're actually going to get excited about watching the Lions on Thanksgiving and not the Cowboys. I mean, that's crazy. All right. The Kansas City Chiefs continue doing what they do. They dominate, and it's not because of Patrick Mahomes, even though, Travis Kelce had his best game of the season on National Tight Ends Day, and Patrick Mahomes was efficient. He did have an interception. The Chiefs didn't really run the ball that well, but Travis Kelce, 10 receptions and 90 yards. You don't think it's a coincidence that he was able to do that? The Raiders had their chance. They had a 3rd and goal situation where they could have tied it. They were down 17-10. And I was watching this on the NFL Red Zone channel. I knew that the Chiefs defense would get the stop. The Chiefs have the best situational defense in the history of the NFL. There's just something about Chris Jones or Drew Tranquill or Eric Bolton or Karlaftis. These are veteran defensive players, and Steve Spagnuolo is the best defensive coordinator in the history of the game, and that is why the Kansas City Chiefs won, because of their defense. I mean, you look on paper, Chiefs are playing the Raiders. They should be blowing out the Raiders. I mean, Patrick Mahomes should be out-dueling Gardner Minshew, but that is not the case. Everybody in this league is going to give the Kansas City Chiefs their best shot. And I would not be surprised if the Chiefs finish 16-1 or 17-0 this year. But the Chiefs are really sleepwalking through this season. They don't have to give 100%. Patrick Mahomes is going to give Travis Kelce 10 catches because it's National Tight Ends Day. I mean, that's pretty much what the Chiefs do. All right, moving on. There's something seriously wrong with the New York Jets. Drake May left this game. Jacoby Brissett leads the New England Patriots to the victory. And even though the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers didn't play a terrible game, the New England Patriots situationally, I think they might have saved Gerard Mayo's job, even though I don't think Gerard Mayo would get fired if the Patriots didn't win a single game for the rest of the season. This is a big win for the New England Patriots. The New York Jets, I think they're going to try to find a coach in the offseason. There's no, hey, we're going to play hard for the interim coach, and we might just give him the job next season. Does Aaron Rodgers play next year? And this has been a disaster for Aaron Rodgers. You thought last year was a disaster with the injury. I mean, we're thinking of the category when Joe Namath went to the Rams, or Willie Mays going to the Mets, Michael Jordan going to the Wizards. All right, let's not go there. But this could be a disaster for the New York Jets. This is a laughable franchise. Devontae Adams left Oakland to go play with Aaron Rodgers. You don't think he regrets that situation? You don't think that he wants to be traded again? And what if the Chiefs end up getting him? I mean, that could be a possibility. Oh, I hate it for Aaron Rodgers. But speaking of Aaron Rodgers' former team, the Green Bay Packers are a very well-run organization. This was a very tricky game. It's against Jacksonville on the road. Jordan Love gets hurt. Malik Willis comes in. The Packers do what they do. They get the win, and now the Packers are standing pretty 6-2 with the Vikings losing 2 games. And then now Detroit is in first place. Green Bay is right behind Detroit. This division is the best division in football. I mean, the Bears are 4-3, and they're in last place. This is a great division and a good win on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Green Bay able to get the victory. I really whiffed on this game. I thought that the Bengals with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase playing at home, the Eagles with Nick Sirianni, they don't really play hard for them. They barely beat the teams they're supposed to blow out. The Eagles look fantastic. This is really a coming out party for the Philadelphia Eagles, even though I've been critical of the Eagles on this show, saying that their defense can't stop anybody. But to get a road victory and a 20-point road victory for the Philadelphia Eagles. And this was one of those games where Jalen Hurts was efficient. Saquon Barkley didn't go off like he did against the Giants, rushing for over 170 yards. This was where Nakobe Dean got a fumble recovery. The defense actually did very well and shut down the Cincinnati Bengals, who are now 3-5. The Bengals are a really bad football team, and the Philadelphia Eagles are now 5-2. And now we could start talking about the Eagles as one of the top teams in the NFC, even though I wasn't a believer when they were barely beating teams. And when they lost to Tampa Bay, I thought that Nick Sirianni was going to get fired right there on the spot. But the Eagles, still a very efficient offense. I said in the beginning of the season, the Eagles would be the most explosive, dynamic offense coming into this league. And I was a little bit wrong, but this was a big win for the Philadelphia Eagles. This was a big win for the Buffalo Bills to go up to the Pacific Northwest and get a 31-10 win over the Seattle Seahawks, who are having a lot of confidence after beating the Falcons on the road. And then Buffalo just proved why they are one of the best teams in the AFC, and that why the AFC is superior to the NFC right now, because Seattle goes to 4-4. They're tied with the 49ers and the Cardinals. And I'm actually thinking that the Buffalo Bills might be the Chiefs' biggest challenger to go to the Super Bowl. They're now 6-2. Josh Allen had 2 touchdown passes, and the Bills just dominated all phases of the game. I mean, 31-3 in the fourth quarter. I mean, we're talking about the Seattle fans, who have been the best home field advantage for a decade. The 12th man up in Seattle were booing the Seahawks at halftime, and it was just awful. The Seahawks are now 4-4. This is a very mediocre team. This is not a great team. This is a team that could possibly sneak into the playoffs, but the Bills are just playing amazing. How about Georgia's Ladd McConkey getting 2 touchdown receptions? The Chargers end up blowing out the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are a mess. They've got just about everybody that was injured. They're trying to come back from those injuries. Spencer Rattler gets injured. You got Jake Hayner coming in, Taysom Hill, a gadget guy coming in. Alvin Kamara was okay. I think the Saints were playing catch-up. That's why they didn't give him the ball. Chris Olave comes back from the injury, but now the Saints are 2-6. This team started 2-0, and I actually got on this show thinking that Clint Kubiak was going to be the next hot NFL assistant that could get a head coaching job. But now the Saints, I think that Dennis Allen is going to be fired. This is just an implosion by the Saints to lose 6 in a row. Chargers back on track, 4-3. Let's see how they do in that division. I want to see that rematch when everybody gets healthy. I want to see that rematch against Kansas City, because I do think that the Chargers, when healthy, are a playoff team and could make some noise in the playoffs, because Jim Harbaugh is that difference. He's that difference of a coach when it comes to like Brandon Staley or Anthony Lynn. I mean, he's really a good coach. All right, Houston, they keep on winning. This actually was 23-20, by the way. But Indianapolis, I think that Anthony Richardson, his ceiling is hit. And I think that Anthony Richardson is not that special quarterback we actually thought for the Indianapolis Colts. Do the Colts make the quarterback change back to Joe Flacco? Because he was winning. And I think that Houston also, they keep on winning. And C.J. Stroud looks amazing. Carolina, Bryce Young did throw for 2 touchdown passes. Carolina did go up 7-0, but it was Denver. It was Bo Nix with 3 touchdowns. Sean Payton, Bo Nix. This quarterback coach combination is starting to work in Denver. And I'm looking at the Denver Broncos, and I think that they could possibly sneak into the playoffs. They do have a tough schedule, but they are 5-3. Let's look at this schedule. Yeah, they play the Baltimore Ravens next, then the Kansas City Chiefs, then the Atlanta Falcons. They could easily lose 3 games here, but it is a nice story to see Bo Nix doing great, and Sean Payton does have his quarterback, and everything just works out for the best because Russell Wilson is now in Pittsburgh, and he's going to be the starting quarterback. So here we go. By the way, that is a Monday night game. All right, the Arizona Cardinals. I tell you what, the Cardinals, they're a biggest mystery, but Kyler Murray gets the win, the field goal. They spoiled Tua's debut coming back from that injury. And, oh, man, the Cardinals are now 4-4. They're in first place in the NFC West. And I tell you what, that was a great win. Yeah, I misspelled Arizona. Sorry about that. All right. Here's what we're going to do. That was the NFL recap show. We're going to go and take a break. When we come back, it is the college football reaction show. I'm going to have my playoff picks. You don't want to go anywhere. It's a Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Let's go pay some bills. We'll be right back after this.
Introducing Gatorade Water. Alkaline and electrolyte infused for great taste. Gatorade Water, always in motion.
We are back here on the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Yeah, it was a rough segment because I had some missed spellings on the graphics. But let's talk some college football. The Alabama Crimson Tide are back. Yeah, I know. Alabama fans get a little too high, a little too low. Oh, let's fire Kalen DeBoer. The last 3 weeks, in fact, after the second half of the Georgia game where they gave up the lead up 28-0, Alabama's looked terrible. They lose to Tennessee last week, coming in to face a Missouri team who was a college football playoff contender in the beginning of the season with Brady Cook. You got Luther Burden, but the Alabama defense completely shut down Missouri's offense. It looked a little shaky in that first half, but Alabama is back. And I actually think that if Alabama wins out, they are going to the college football playoff. There is no question about that. I honestly believe that. And Alabama able to get the 34-0 victory over the Missouri Tigers, which, Brady Cook got injured in that game, even though Jalen Milroe did not have a touchdown in, the rushing attack of Justice Hayes. You had Richard Young, you had Jalen Milroe, you had Jam Miller, and the Alabama defense just suffocated the Missouri Tigers. 3 interceptions, including Malachi Moore, Bray Hubbard, and Qua Rasaw. And Alabama 6-2. I do feel if they lose a game, like they lose to LSU in 2 weeks, they're out. They're out of the college football playoff consideration. I do think that after that LSU game, an easy game against Mercer, on the road against Oklahoma, which they should win that game, and then they play Auburn in the Iron Bowl. So that LSU game is going to be probably the de facto game that the winner of that game could see the college football playoff, although LSU did lose as well. So let's talk about that LSU game because they lose to Texas A&M in College Station. And LSU right now, their margin of error to get to the college football playoff is very slim because now the winner of that Alabama-LSU game could miss out on the college football playoff. I do think that a team with 3 losses is not going to get into the college football playoff. I honestly feel that way. Texas A&M just looked fantastic, and it really was their quarterback coming off the bench, Marcel Reed. I mean, he had 2 big plays. Connor Wegman, 6 of 18. That is not going to get it done. But it was the defense that stepped up, and the hostile environment. Garrett Nussmeier had 3 interceptions. I mean, LSU just could not do anything. And Texas A&M, what a win to go 7-1. And they actually jumped in the new AP poll as Texas A&M is now up to number 10. And so I'll be interested to see what happens in the college football rankings when I have that later on in the show. But a great win for the Texas A&M Aggies. I'm telling you, that game against Texas in College Station to end the regular season is looking more fantastic by the day. The Lone Star Shootout is back, and it's an SEC contest. That's going to be great. Auburn needed this win. And I actually thought when they were down 10-0 and Peyton Thorne throws another pick, I'm like, oh, here we go again. But Auburn, they have better players than Kentucky. Their defense shut them out in that second half. Jarquez Hunter rushes for over 120 yards. And Auburn gets a desperate win. And now they are 3-5. And my thing about Auburn is because they're going to have some easy games that they should win. I feel they should beat Vanderbilt next week. Even though Vanderbilt was ranked, and I'll get to Vanderbilt in a second because they did have a very tough loss to Texas. I think that they have to beat Vanderbilt, obviously. I mean, really, they got to win out. And that game on the Plains against Texas A&M, that could get them bowl eligible. They could go into the Iron Bowl 6-5. That is if they win out. But, I mean, they still have a tough schedule. Okay, they got Vanderbilt next. They could go to 4-5. They play Louisiana Monroe. You're talking about 5-5 going into that Texas A&M Auburn game. Let's say they lose that game to Texas A&M. They could be 5-6 going into the Iron Bowl, and all they got to do is beat Alabama. I mean, I know that's a tough ask for a team that, is unranked and they've had a disaster of a season. But Auburn could salvage this season by just winning out. They got winnable games. Even the Texas A&M and Alabama games, they could maybe get one of those wins and become bowl eligible. And I do think that is possible. If they lose both those games, obviously they're going 5-7 and they're not going to a bowl game. All right, this was a fun game. Texas and Vanderbilt. This was a very close win for the Texas Longhorns. And my thoughts on Texas is that the SEC is going to give Texas their best shot just about every week. And you saw this against Mississippi State. Obviously, Georgia dominated Texas. And I do think that this was a very fun game. This was one of those games. Quinn Ewers throws for 3 touchdowns. They actually it was a 1-score game going into the fourth quarter. They were able to take that 10-point lead. I think that Diego Pavea's touchdown to make it, 27-24 was too little too late. And Diego Pavea actually played very well. I was impressed with, the fans, even though, they had more Texas fans than Vanderbilt fans, obviously. But this was one of those headline games where, Vanderbilt is starting to make some noise and, all they need is one more win and they're going to a bowl game. I mean, that is a success for Clark Lee. All right, Ole Miss just dominated Oklahoma. Ole Miss, I'm not saying that they're back in the consideration for the college football playoff because, having to beat Georgia is going to be tough. And Ole Miss has still got a very tough schedule, but Oklahoma is just not ready for the SEC. They fall to 4-4. Ole Miss 6-2. If Ole Miss wins out, they play Arkansas next week. That's a tough game. I'm here to say Arkansas is a tough out, especially in Fayetteville. They play Georgia and Oxford. They play Florida in the Swamp, and they play Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. Ole Miss has got to win all those games to get into the college football playoff. But this is what Ole Miss is. I mean, they are about a 9-10 win team under Lane Kiffin. Nothing more, nothing less, but a good win against the Oklahoma Sooners. And then let's go ahead and get into some Big Ten matchups. Penn State, they survive. I mean, this was a lot closer than people thought. Penn State ends up going into Madison and getting the win over the Wisconsin Badgers. I actually said that Penn State would be on upset alert. I don't know why I said that, but I did. I do think that Penn State, they get ready for a massive game in Happy Valley next week against Ohio State. This was one of those games where Drew Aller did not finish the game, but Wisconsin had an opportunity. I mean, this was a 14-13 game going into the fourth quarter, and then all of a sudden Penn State just blows the doors open and they survive. What a great win for Coach Franklin and the Penn State Nittany Lions. This is the rivalry game. You remember in the 90s and the early 2000s, wide right, wide left. And I cannot believe I even thought that Miami would be on upset alert. Florida State is just awful. 1-7. We're talking about Florida State probably being, setting the record for the most losses in a season. I mean, we're approaching the Willie Taggart era for Florida State. I mean, this is bad. I mean, when is Florida State going to win a game? I mean, they could lose to North Carolina. They play Notre Dame. I see them beating Charleston Southern, possibly losing to Florida, maybe one more win. Now, as for Miami, I still think Miami is on a collision course to play Clemson in the ACC championship. Cam Ward is going to win the Heisman. They play Duke. They play Georgia Tech. They play Wake Forest, and they play Syracuse on the road. And the way Syracuse, Kyle McCord throwing picks, I think that Miami could go undefeated going into the ACC championship against Clemson, because I think that Clemson is going to win out. So great matchups in college football. Speaking of Georgia Tech, you could tell that Georgia Tech misses Haynes King, because when you don't have your quarterback, you're not the same team. Virginia Tech ends up beating Georgia Tech 21-6, and I'm starting to see the wheels come off for Georgia Tech. They need to get Haynes King back in there. We saw that Haynes King is a difference maker for Georgia Tech, and I still think that if they had Haynes King in the Notre Dame game, that might have been a competitive game. Georgia Tech is now 5-4 on the season, and they went to a bowl game last year. I see them losing to Miami, even if Haynes King comes back. If they beat NC State, they're bowl eligible, but they could easily lose all their games, go 5-7, and miss out on another bowl game. And now we're talking about Brent Key is like, oh, was he the right guy? They got him as the interim coach for Jeff Collins, who was a disaster of a coach. But I don't really, talk about Georgia Tech a lot on my show. If you really want to know about Georgia Tech, if you want to know about like the depth chart and who's playing wide receiver, who's your second string quarterback, Bryce Kuhn is your guy, because nobody covers Georgia Tech like Bryce Kuhn. Colorado's bowl eligible. We kind of knew about this. We knew that Colorado was going to slip through the cracks. Nobody was going to be talking about them. But, Colorado was a big national story last year. But what a big win for Coach Prime. And Travis Hunter had an amazing catch. Shadur Sanders, they have two superstars, and that's how they're able to win. And Colorado is going to a bowl game. I think that mission accomplished by Coach Prime. I really do. I never once thought that Colorado was a Big 12 championship contender. But remember, they only got one loss in the Big 12. If they win out, maybe they get into the Big 12 championship, depending on what Iowa State and BYU do. Who knows? Yeah, I should have led off with this game, but this was the noon kickoff on Fox, and Ohio State survives. I watched this game, and Dylan Raiola, who is a talent, just wasn't ready for Ohio State's defense. Situationally, Ohio State's defense is going to win games for you. And I think that Ohio State's going to have their hands full against Penn State. I don't necessarily think a loss to Penn State knocks them out of the college football playoff, but it doesn't really help them. I don't think that the Big Ten is going to get 3 teams in, especially if one of those teams has got 2 losses. You're telling me you're going to put a 2-loss Ohio State above a 1-loss Indiana? Because I think that Indiana could win out, and they could end up losing to either Oregon or Penn State in the Big Ten championship. A lot of scenarios to get to, but that's why we love college football. And then finally, BYU ends up getting the win over Central Florida. They just keep rolling along. All right, let's go ahead and take our final break. When we come back, I'm bringing it back, talking about the college football playoff projection. And then I'm going to wrap this show up with all the local stuff happening in and around the Chattahoochee Valley. You don't want to go anywhere. It's Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And we'll be right back after this.
Introducing Gatorade Water. Alkaline and electrolyte infused for great taste. Gatorade Water, always in motion.
All right, we're back. It's the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. Final segment before I get you out of here. My college football playoff projection. Like I do every Monday, I love having fun with this, especially with the new AP poll coming out. All right, here we go. There's no question Oregon is still my number one team. They are the AP number one. Georgia is number two. I got all week to talk about the Georgia-Florida game. Does Florida play spoiler? Georgia still has some tough teams on their schedule like Ole Miss and Tennessee, even though that Tennessee game is in Athens. Miami, I think they win out. I think they play Clemson in the ACC championship. If they win, I mean, they're going to be the number 3 seed. If Clemson wins, I think that Miami still gets into the college football playoff. Iowa State is going to win out. I was looking at the schedule for Iowa State, and I thought to myself about this because the Big 12, it seems like it was up for grabs in the beginning. It was Oklahoma State and Utah that we all picked, and Iowa State just looked fantastic. When are they going to be challenged? Maybe against Utah, possibly on the 23rd of November, because Cam Rising, we don't know about the health, but if Iowa State, they play Kansas State at home, Iowa State could go undefeated. And if you look at the standings in the Big 12, it's BYU and Iowa State right now. And that's why I got BYU in the mix as well, because I think that BYU wins out. And Iowa State and BYU play each other in the Big 12 championship. I brought Boise State back in the mix because Liberty lost to Kennesaw State. I think that Boise State is going to be that 12 seed taking on Texas A&M. And because Texas A&M, after beating LSU, I wanted to reward Texas A&M for being that team, which I think now Texas A&M beats Texas. They play Georgia in the SEC championship. Texas is going to have 2 losses. I still think Texas gets in. I still think Alabama gets in because I think Alabama beats LSU, and Alabama has 2 losses. Ohio State, I think, is going to beat Penn State. That's why I got them back in the college football playoff projection. That could be interchangeable, Ohio State or Penn State. Notre Dame is going to win out. Clemson's only going to have 1 loss. Let's take a look at the projections for the quarterfinal matches. How about this? Alabama has never played Oregon ever in college football. Well, they might play again. Ohio State and Georgia, rematch of the Peach Bowl semifinal college football playoff where Marvin Harrison Jr. got injured. Texas and Miami, this is a flashback to when Texas played Miami back in 1990. And then Boise State pulls off the upset and beats Texas A&M to take on Iowa State in the quarterfinal, which means something's got to give. One of these teams is going to advance to the semifinal. Who could it be? How about that? Boise State rematch with Oregon once again, which that was a very close game. Alshon Jenti might end up winning the Heisman because Boise State is just going to have just an incredible season. I whiffed on Boise State losing to UNLV. The fact they beat UNLV 29-24, Boise State's in the driver's seat to get that Group of 5 college football playoff spot. And then Texas and Georgia once again for the rematch. And then, of course, my national championship does not change. It's still Georgia and Oregon in the national championship. How about that? Once again, another successful college football playoff projection like I do on every Monday show. A couple more things to get into before I close this show out. Game 3 of the World Series tonight. It goes back to Yankee Stadium. The Dodgers are up 2-0 on the New York Yankees thanks to a walk-off grand slam by Freddie Freeman in Game 1. The Dodgers were able to get the win 4-2 on Saturday. And I still think the Yankees could come back and win all 3 games at Yankee Stadium. By the way, I did finish watching that Netflix documentary on the Boston Red Sox, amazing 3-0 deficit to the New York Yankees. It's not the ESPN 30 for 30 that you think, like the 4 days in October. They go into more detail. They actually interview Yankees players, although, I'm trying to spoil it for you. But Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez do not get interviewed, which I think that's not cool. I think that there's a lot of pride there, and that probably like ate inside at him for a long time before, the Yankees actually finally won a World Series in 2009. But it was a great documentary. They really go into detail. It's a 3-part series on Netflix. So go ahead and check that out. Anyway, game 3 tonight at Yankee Stadium. Let me take a look at the pitching matchups for you, as we've got Walker Buehler coming back from the injury, taking on Clark Schmidt. I think the Yankees get the win here. I honestly think Yankees are going to win all 3 games at Yankee Stadium, and we could end up having a Game 7 in the World Series. I'm not a fan of either team, but yeah, if I was pulling for a team because I'm a lifelong Giants fan, I would root for the Dodgers. I would root for the Yankees. I cannot believe I said I'd root for the Dodgers. I just don't like either team. All right, WNBA news. The Indiana Fever parted ways with their head coach, Christy Sides. I think that they want to try to get another coach in there. I don't know if there was some tension between Caitlin Clark and Christy Sides and Aaliyah Boston, but I do think we do have a season, because the WNBA might end up having a lockout. I do think because of the revenue that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese have brought to the league, that the players should be well compensated and their salaries should be way more than what they are right now. So this could be a problem, but I think that the Indiana Fever, I kind of compared this to like in 2005 when the Cleveland Cavaliers parted ways with Paul Silas. They just wanted a different head coach to be right there with LeBron. And, they ended up getting Mike Brown. They fired Dave Blatt. LeBron has just gone through coaches. Speaking of LeBron, the Los Angeles Lakers are 3-0. JJ Redick might end up getting Coach of the Year. You remember Darvin Ham had the Lakers at this time 0-3. Anthony Davis might win the MVP. LeBron is still the guy, and he's at almost 40, and he's still playing at a high level. He's got a son in the league, even though Bronny James is going to the G League. Bronny James has not played since his 3 minutes in the opener. Just some NBA notes. The Atlanta Hawks lose their first game of the season to the Oklahoma City Thunder on the road, 128-104. Trae Young had 24 points. If the Hawks are going to be like a contender in the East, they got to find a way to win these games. And, the superstars, when they end up having Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 35 points, I thought that DeAndre Hunter was your defensive stopper. Obviously, he's not. He has been just a complete disappointment, not a total bust, but just a complete disappointment. He's been injury prone. Zachary Regisher had 13 points. There is no clear-cut rookie in the NBA that's taken off and said, oh, yeah, this rookie is going to win Rookie of the Year. None of the rookies are averaging more than 10 points a game. They're all less than 9. Zachary Regisher is averaging like 8 points a game. So anyway, tonight, it's the number 1 pick going up against the number 2 pick. The Hawks are taking on the Wizards. You got Alex Sarr going up against Zachary Regisher. There's really no clear-cut favorite to win NBA Rookie of the Year. I know it's early, but right now in the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers are 3-0. The Boston Celtics are 3-0. Lakers and OKC are 3-0. So far, that is the NBA in a nutshell. And during the week, I'll talk about some of the games that are happening. I will break down the NBA, and college basketball is going to be here before you know it. And so I'm excited about that. Locally to Columbus, River Dragons home opener this Friday against the Mississippi Seawolves at the Columbus Civic Center. Columbus State Soccer ends up getting the 1-0 victory over North Georgia, as they are now 13-0-1, as that was the final home regular season game. They are Peach Belt champions once again. The Peach Belt Conference Tournament will take place on November the 9th. And how about the LaGrange College Panthers? They are 4-3 on the season. They have won 4 of their last 5. Over 2,000 fans at Callaway Stadium. They defeat Greensboro 52-16. They go on the road to Montgomery next week to take on Huntington College. A big shout out to Cam White, the former Glenn Gator, who plays for Huntington College. This has been a great show. Don't forget, I have my high school football scoreboard show tomorrow where I recap week 11 and I preview week 12 on Thursday, by the way. And then Wednesday's show, it's all going to be about the GHSA softball playoffs. Thank you once again for listening to another show here on the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. You can subscribe to the Facebook channel. I'm also found on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, the X. I'm pretty much everywhere as I'm trying to just make a name for myself here in this industry. Once again, I'm signing off. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.